Hello and welcome to Lives Among Us. I'm your host, Dan+Greer, and I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us for our inaugural episode. In Lives Among Us started as an idea for me 4 or 5 years ago when I was visiting with a friend of mine who said about his father, a veteran of the Army Infantry in World War II. He said about his father, Dan, we are surrounded by heroes and we don't even know it. And what he was talking about was all of these brave things his father did while serving as a young man in the war, and who eventually came home and just lived a normal life. And the idea was people would stand in front of this man in the grocery store and have no idea about who was standing behind him and what that man had done. And so for me, that planted this seed where I started to begin to realize and appreciate that a lot of times the people around us every day do extraordinary things, and they're responsible for so many of the good things that happen in this world. And oftentimes these people, they don't want a camera on them, they don't want a microphone, they don't want to do their own commercials. And so hence the idea for Lives Among Us was born, where we want to highlight and shine a spotlight on people that we know to be good, hardworking, successful people who add to the richness of their communities. And so with that said, we couldn't be more pleased to welcome as our guest for our inaugural episode, Mr. Gary+Hirsch, owner, operator, manager, and everything else of Hirsch's Specialty Meats right here in Plano, Texas. Gary, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. That's a big introduction.
Well, it's true. It's a true statement.
A bit overwhelmed.
Hirsch's Specialty Meats, Parker and Alma.
Yep.
Tell us what's going on there.
A lot of good food, a lot of good meat, and that's the reason I got into this business. Some 20 years ago, I saw a niche opportunity that there was less quality product being served out there.
Okay.
And I knew there was still a percentage of people that wanted good quality product, knew there might cost a little bit more.
Right.
And we took advantage of it, and we were successful at always offering very good product with good, friendly service. Yep. At a fair price.
What would you say recently, what's the biggest selling item going out of the store?
Ooh, ribeye.
Ribeye?
Everybody loves ribeye.
Well, I'll tell you what I always go in for. I came and saw you around Christmas time last year, and you handed me, I didn't know you carried these, but you handed me a big bag of bones with some meat and some sinew on them, and you said, give these to your dog, she'll love them, and she did. And to this day, when I walk in the door and she seems happy to see me, I don't know if she's happy to see me or she just wants me to give her some more bones. But a lot of things going on, great things at Hirsch's Specialty Meats. And over the years, you said it's been 20 years. Over the years, you've been recognized by D Magazine, the Plano+Chamber+of+Commerce, the City of Plano, Reader's Choice Awards. The list goes on of the people who have formally recognized you and your store for being the quality, successful operation that it is. But I want to back up because I have a feeling it wasn't always the good times. No. So if you would, kind of take us back to the beginning, kind of maybe some of the first few days. There's one story in particular I want to ask you about, but just getting started, what was it like in the beginning?
It was exciting. It was just so exciting that I would be able to have a business that I would have all control over. Because I worked for other employers, not that I didn't like it, but this was an opportunity to do something that I've really wanted to do for years because I grew up a little bit in the background. I've always been in retail, and I've had great mentors in retail, and I was at the point where I felt I was ready to do this.
Okay.
So we did. We got a little store open, bare walls and all. Just had enough equipment to get it open. Had our little struggles with the city because not knowing everything you need to do, so that comes up. Got in there the first night before we even opened the store. I went in about 8 o'clock at night and started cutting meat and making sausage because come 9 o'clock the next morning, I wanted everything to be full, packed, looking good. And I did. I worked through the entire night all by myself. Finally, I guess about 8 o'clock, some folks' brother came in, a couple other people, going to get the store open. And I was so tired I couldn't finish doing some of the things. My brother finished, but it took me till about 11 o'clock to try to figure out why nobody came in the store. People come up to the door, look in, and walk away. Well, never thought to unlock the front door. So and all that excitement and all that, you know.
So day one, brand new store, brand new operation. You worked all through the night, stocking the shelves.
Everything.
We didn't unlock the first door, didn't unlock the door.
Yeah, but that's one of those things you look back and laugh now. Wasn't too happy at the time. But.
So, and who else? You said your brother was involved?
Well, my brother was in town.
Okay, okay,
and,
so, right.
and he's got experience in the food business, so he helped me do a bit too. But we had a couple of brand new employees. It was their first day and everything.
Yep.
And we were just thinking, we sent out coupons, you know, people are going to flood the store, and it didn't quite work that way.
Right. Well, and that, you know, kind of following through with that, I would imagine that's probably one of a number of stories where early on, it didn't quite go as we expected, or we didn't know we had to learn about how to do things with the city, and you learn these lessons the hard way.
Yeah.
Were there ever times when you thought, maybe I can't do this?
Yes.
And then what led you to keep doing it?
The very lowest point I remember is my wife came up to me, because I told her, well, before we did this, I said, you know, if this goes bad, we could lose everything.
Yep.
We could lose the house, everything. And one day she came up to me, and this is about a year after we were into it. She says, I can't make the house payment this month. It's time to sell the house. It just felt so bad. I felt like I failed so bad. But at the same time, that she was willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, I noticed the option is time to sell the house, not time to shut down the business.
Yeah. So in that way, it kind of blew me away. And also I had a talk with my accountant. Yep. Frustrated, not making any money, you know, barely making bills. And he's telling me, okay, there's a couple things you need to do. First of all, you need to hire a manager. Oh, what do you mean hire a manager? He says, you need to get out of the store and bring business into the store. Yep. I wasn't sure what he meant by that. I said, well, how can I pay for this guy if I'm not even paying myself? He says, if you go out and bring business in, he'll pay for himself. Don't worry about it. Right. And the other thing he assured me after a year or so in business, even though I wasn't making any money, wasn't making a living, he says, look at the numbers. Everything you're doing is working. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Right. But you're doing everything the way it should go. Right. He said, I've worked with a lot of small businesses. You're going to make it. So he gave me that little bit of confidence that I needed, because he could see it, but I couldn't.
Okay. Is he still around today? Is he still involved?
No, he actually moved out, but his fellow that took over his business is incredible. And I tell you, I owe so much to my accountant. Yeah. Throughout the years, he's just been amazing.
And did you take his advice within, say, 6 months to a year?
Yes.
You've got an inside guy, and now you go become the outside guy and spread the word.
Go out, join Chamber of Commerce, which I already did, but I wasn't active in it.
Yeah, right.
Wasn't active in it. That was a mistake. I joined Civic Club, got very involved in that. So you're out there being around other people like yourself. Right. And that really, you talk about a great support group. And when you get frustrated, those guys are there for you. Those women are there for you. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that part of it, though, for you, for example, let's say you decided to start a meat market. Mm-hmm. There was some passion you had that led to you starting. You could have started any business in the world. That's what you did. You had a special interest in that line of product. Do you think you've got a passion for that, so that when you're out talking about, let's not even say it's just your business, just that industry?
Sure I do.
Just that, there's something that comes out that resonates with other people, because that's your subject.
Yes, because it is so unique. And actually what we do is a dying trade. Yep. There's not many places you can go to learn this trade. All the grocery stores used to have real meat cutters. Yep. Now they have counter clerks. Majority of their product comes in pre-cut, pre-packaged. Yep. And that's one of the things, like I say, people like about coming to our stores. We have real meat cutters. We cut whatever they want on the spot. Right. The way they want it. Right. You don't have to wait. You don't get excuses. Yep. Unless we're out of something. But.
So before the day you didn't unlock the front door, before that day, what were you doing? What were you doing before Hirsch's Specialty Meats?
Before that, I worked 13 years for one of the local chains. Okay. Yeah, which was great, because when I first came to Dallas, I actually wanted to open a little meat market. Yep. But I didn't know enough about the clientele, what people buy, what do people in Texas eat. Right. So fortunately, I got on with a very good chain and worked with some good people there and got to feel comfortable with what they were doing, but it also helped me realize actually how much more, and I'm not bragging, how much more I knew than most of the meat cutters I worked with, because they only learned this much, being in the environment they were in. Where I came from, a different environment, where you still work with carcass cattle.
Right.
You still work with things that weren't pre-cut and pre-boxed.
Right.
So you knew how to take it from the beginning and end up with the finished product.
Okay. And then what do you think led to, how long was that process? What, you moved to Texas, and I want to get to where we were before in a moment, but you moved to Texas, you got a 13-year career with an organization, probably going okay, I imagine, but there's this temptation to go set up your own shop. How long did that take for you to go from thinking about it to doing it, and what do you think ultimately pushed you to do it?
Was always on my mind, and there's actually several years before I opened, I was already buying equipment.
Okay.
I'd go to auctions, I'd find deals here and there, what I could afford,
Right.
put it in storage, and just wait till the time was right. What happened was the company I was working for got bought out by another company.
Okay.
And the new company said, don't worry, nothing's going to change. Well, the very next day, everything changed. I said, all right, I see, I'm working
Right.
on something, and I'm
Good.
going for it.
Okay. So not knowing the clientele in Dallas, that's because, in case people don't know, like myself, you're a Midwesterner, born
Right.
and raised just
Right.
outside of Detroit, right?
Sure.
And we were talking a little bit earlier. You were living right outside of Detroit in its heyday. In the times that we look at today, and we can't believe Detroit's in the state that it's in today. But when you were growing up there, Detroit was probably one of the highest regarded cities in the world, certainly the United States. But I'd love to know, what was it like? I want to know, what's it like growing up, Gary? What was it like growing up for you in the Hirsch family?
No, it was great to come from a family of 6 siblings.
Okay.
Mom and dad, mom was stay-home mom because back then they could do that.
Right.
Dad was an electrician.
Okay.
So, the family life actually was real good. I mean, we lived in a small I grew up in a 2-bedroom house with 6 kids.
Okay.
And you didn't think nothing of it. We were always fed, we were always clothed.
Where did you rank
I
age-wise?
was second from the youngest. So I
Older
did-
brothers?
One older brother,
Okay.
and then 4 older sisters.
Okay.
So I got picked on a lot.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I imagine.
So it makes you tough.
Anything stand out from, elementary school, high school, any certain experiences that you feel like you carried with you today, whether that was a teacher, it was a schoolyard fight, or something just from your childhood that you feel like has carried you through to
There's a few
today?
things, but one thing that I smile about every time, and this was such a great lesson for me when I was in 9th grade. I was good at earth sciences.
Okay.
I was terrible at algebra. Made no sense to me. I would go many, many days after school with my algebra teacher, and she tried to explain it to me again and again. And I struggled, pulled C's. Meanwhile, come the end of the 9th grade year, they give out awards to all the students that have excelled certain areas. So we're sitting in this assembly, and here's my earth science teacher up there giving awards to my buddy Jeff and this guy, and I'm just waiting for him to call my name, and nothing happened. It's a little disappointing. I thought surely there was something there for me. But then they get into the math thing, and eventually my algebra teacher gets up there and starts reading off names of awards for kids, and she called my name. And I was as stunned, I couldn't believe it. And even people around me looked at me like, him? I go up there, get my award, and thanked her and walked back and just stared at this thing. This was on a Friday afternoon. Didn't see her until the following Monday morning. I had her first period. So I went up to her and, Miss Jordan, why did you give me an award?
Right.
I'm terrible. I don't understand this. I'm terrible. She says, Gary, it's not because you didn't get it. Not that you weren't an A student, but nobody's ever tried as hard as you did. And that kind of blew me away.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the effort.
And at least my experience, and it's funny, I feel like I have experiences that I think I can relate to that, and then I've learned now, later in life, I can identify the people that have that tenacity, that have that work ethic, that have that passion to try to do something just to see if they can, or maybe I'm bad at it now, but there's a reason I want to get good at it. And regardless of what the short-term results are, that's a unique spirit that I think if you're of that mindset, you see it in other people, and there's rewards waiting down the road for people like that, and your teacher certainly was right about you.
Well, that's one of those things that you think if somebody else thinks that enough of you, that it just encourages you to want to keep trying, keep going.
What brought you to Texas? Did you come straight from Michigan down to Texas?
Yeah, I had family had moved down here earlier. My parents had moved down here, had an older sister and brother down here. What happened was one year my parents were getting ready to come to Michigan for Christmas. So it was right before Christmas, and my dad had an accident where his pickup truck rolled over his arm.
Okay.
Okay. started to move, and he slipped and rolled over. Went to the hospital and broke his arm, but while he was in there, my dad was a big guy, and unfortunately, he came down with pneumonia, his lungs collapsed, and he had a heart attack. It was just the day after Christmas. So we knew he couldn't come. I did talk to him on the phone like the night before. So he passed away day after Christmas that year. So all of us kids still in Michigan loaded up our cars, and we coming down to Texas for the funeral. Well, this is between Christmas and New Year's. Okay, now mind you, we're in Detroit area.
I know where you're going.
Foot and a half of snow, slush, cold, freezing, terrible.
Black snow.
Yeah, and the whole time we're here, it's in the lower 70s and sunny. So after everything was done and finished, my wife and I are driving back in her little car, and we just looked at each other and said, come the fall, let's move to Texas.
Yep.
Because I couldn't tolerate winter as it was.
Winters. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
never looked back.
We were talking a little bit earlier, but I think we have similar experiences where we live in this wonderful, robust, quality community, and it's shocking to look back at Detroit, and even for me looking at Chicago, and to see these towns where we grew up and we were raised and have all these great memories, and to see them struggle in the way they are now. And then we look around here and things are so good, life is so good in Plano. Plano's such a robust community. What do you think of when you think of that? You look back on your hometown, you look back on Detroit, and here you are, one of the most successful business owners in a real robust, growing town. And you look back at where you grew up, and it's almost, completely inversely related.
Oh, we were just there a couple of weeks ago, and it's really, it hurts.
Yep.
It hurts because as a child growing up there, what a great place. I tolerated the winters, but the rest of the year was great. So many good memories there. I had a grandmother who lived in Detroit. As kids, we'd go to her house for trick-or-treating, holidays and things, and it was beautiful, beautiful place. And go back there now, her house is gone. Her neighbor's house is gone.
Yep.
The rest of the homes in the area are either half burned down or boarded up, uninhabitable. And just to see such a dynamic place just crumble through all the things that have happened there over the years, it's hard to understand. And the only reason for that, I believe, is, it's the people that live there. It's the people you put in office. It's the decisions you make.
Do you think, are you optimistic or hopeful that they take a lesson, a page out of the playbook from an Atlanta or some of these other cities that have struggled before and now are on their way back? Are you hopeful and optimistic when you look back at Detroit now, or are you afraid that the slide keeps going because there's not effective leadership, there's not effective culture to help stimulate the kind of growth and to attract the kind of quality people that we seem to have, running around our town here?
Well, what I've seen is, I can't believe that city can go any lower than it already is. I've told people it looked worse than a third world country. I mean, it's just unbelievable what it looks like to be there. Is there hope? Yeah, there's hope, but there's got to be a lot of changes. They have got to want to have businesses there.
Yep.
They have to be inviting to them. They have to work with them. They have to offer them the same things like we offer businesses here in Texas. It's got to be a business-friendly climate in every way, not just tax incentives, but, I know they passed this last year to be a right-to-work state, which I think is great. I know people there are still fighting it because they're still of the mentality that this is how they grew up with this in place, and that's how they want it to be.
And we need to protect this.
We need, and I always felt, because when I was in Detroit, I worked in the Teamsters, I worked in the UAW, I worked in the unions. I didn't like it because I didn't feel like I needed someone to protect my job. I always felt I'm going to work hard enough to keep my job, that people are going to want me to work for them. I didn't need someone to protect me. And I had some instances when I worked for those unions that I felt taken advantage of by the union. So as a young guy, I just want nothing to do with it.
Well, and that spirit that you talked about has served you well, and you've gone on, and you know business as well as anyone I know, and anyone can look at your business and say that's a success. I want to change directions a little bit, though, because you can't run into anyone in this town, and with your name coming up, somebody doesn't say, that's one of the most generous guys you could ever meet. He's so supportive of so many organizations. He does this, he does that. And so, and I know you're pretty humble about these things. And so without asking you to get into specifics, I'd like to ask, what do you think is it about you in your life that has resulted in you having a spirit of giving back?
Well, it's hard to say. I just know my parents were generous people. They really were. They didn't have much. But, you know, if they had people, family, or who guest over the house, I mean, they fed them, they everything, bend over, take care of their guests, family. I just felt fortunate myself that, well, I guess when I was needing things, not physical things, but when I needed help, people were always there to help me.
Right.
I've been encased in such good friendships of good people. And that's one thing I learned to do, was surround yourself with people you want to be like. And those people always help you. Yep. And if you've got it, share it.
Right.
And it's such a great city, a great area to be in. And that's another thing, I don't understand when I watch the news, there's some of the stories they show. You know, it frustrates me that they don't show all the incredible fundraising things that this community does for all the needs there are in the city. It
Right.
doesn't get enough attention. I've been to some fundraisers where you see them raise $1 million.
Yep.
And this isn't money that people, you know, we all pay our taxes and we may grumble about it, but this is money that I don't want going to the government to
Right.
tell us how to spend it. You know,
Right.
this money's staying in our area, and there's people out there doing great things that I feel don't get enough attention.
Sure.
They put so much time and effort
Right.
into making it a better community, and that's what it is. It's the people.
And I think, yeah, and it's amazing to me how much we can accomplish when we're motivated, or we're allowed to channel our passions towards the things that we're really, really excited about. You know, for me, I'm a big dog guy, and so if there's an animal organization, I'm gonna get involved and roll my sleeves up. Are there any in particular, you know, organizations or endeavors that are, you know, of particular interest or really, really, you know, resonate with you?
One civic club I used to belong to was AMBUCS,
Okay.
American Business Clubs, and their deal was scholarships for all types of therapists,
Okay.
physical, whatever. And they also developed a little tricycle called an Amtrike that was used as an exercise, but a fun way for children that maybe had issues with their lower limbs to strengthen those limbs. And we'd give out literally hundreds of those. We'd seek out people that needed them, gave them away. Now, I know those kids don't know who I am or will never know about me, but it made me feel good
Right.
that we're able to help them.
Right.
That's what's important, is making a difference in their lives.
Yep.
It's not about the awards, it's about the rewards.
Yep.
And that is so rewarding.
I'm going to write that down
Yeah.
later, by the way. Before we start to kind of close this out, one story I need to ask you about.
Mm-hmm.
You were involved in at one point, a pretty serious motorcycle accident. Are you comfortable sharing a little bit
yeah.
about that?
Yeah.
So if you would, just start there, and then I'm going to get to the question I want to ask you.
Okay.
But set the stage, if you would.
Real simple. 45th birthday, at that age, you never get what you really want for your birthday, so you kind of treat yourself. All I wanted to do was ride my bike.
Right.
So go home from the store about, 1 o'clock, get some lunch, drive the van home. I'm going to get the bike because it's a beautiful September afternoon, maybe 80 degrees, just gorgeous. Get on the bike, and I'm going to come down Avenue K because that's the slowest, longest route I can take and enjoy the ride. So as I'm doing that, I'm coming up to an intersection, George Bush.
Yep.
And unfortunately, there was a semi-trailer in left turn lane kind of parked there. So as I came up to the light, no one around me, light was green, and out of the shadows from the other side was a car making a left turn that couldn't see me.
Yep.
I couldn't see them. So we connected, and the amazing thing about it, as soon as I saw the car, so many thoughts went through my head. This is within a span of a second.
Right.
I'm thinking, oh, this is going to hurt, because it was inevitable. I thought, and I'm hitting the brakes, I'm doing I'm so proud of the motorcycle, because it's reacting exactly like it should.
Right.
So I'm like, wow, this is cool. And then thinking, oh, I've got this big shield in front of me. I may get shredded up a little bit
Right.
going through that. And then I thought, knucklehead, let go of the handlebars so you don't break up your arms. I thought of all that
In an instant.
in an instant.
Yeah.
But it was too late. There was the impact. I saw a blur, red and white, heard the crash real loud, and then next thing I knew, I was laying down, and it felt like my rear end was on fire.
So you felt pain initially. A lot of times you just feel
After.
jarred, but okay.
No, when the initial happened, you don't feel nothing.
Right.
It's just lights out
Right.
from the shock. And I was told later on that I actually went over the windshield of the motorcycle
Okay.
from the impact. I bounced off the hood of the car and then into the street.
You end up in an emergency room,
Yeah, they scooped me up, took me over to Plano Hospital.
and if memory serves, they started working on you before they were even able to medicate you. Is that right? Or
Yeah,
give any pain?
they because they thought I could have had internal injuries.
Yep.
At no point would they give me any
Right.
type of pain relief.
Right.
And this was about 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. So that was at the Plano Hospital, and as I'm laying there trying to think, they came up to me and said, Mr. Hirsch, we have a helicopter coming, you're going to be going over to Parkland. And my response was, I've got insurance. What am I going there for?
Covers helicopter.
And they're trying to tell me, no, it's the best place for you to go right now.
Right.
So they did. They got a little helicopter ride over there and got me off, put me on a very special, unique gurney.
Yep.
There was a guy by the side of that gurney the entire time, never left my side, did all kinds of things to me, and finally got my room, I don't know, about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and finally got something. The only thing I really wanted was something to drink. I was so thirsty.
Oh, bad. Well, yeah. So from that night, how far is it again until you're walking around as normal as you're going to be again?
I was in a wheelchair for the first month or two.
Okay.
I mean, I could stand up, I could walk a little bit, and I did. I would get up and intentionally just try to walk.
Right.
So more and more. But it took about 2 months before I actually got back to the store,
Yep.
which I was pretty useless other than answering the telephone. But injuries took a while, but rehab works, let me tell you.
Yep.
Do your rehab, do it, it works. They know what they're doing.
2 years, that's what it was?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Couple-
Oh,
it
do
took-
your, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but do rehab. It works. Therapy is physical therapy, which I spent many years promoting.
Right,
And
right.
our civic club paid off because we saw how well it does work. So
Yep.
all those scholarships, in my opinion, was well worth it.
Well, here's why I wanted to ask. This is my big setup. So anybody who's ever been in a car accident, and that's, I don't know, probably at least half the population, but most people, most adults have been in an accident once in their lives. They know the gripping, paralyzing fear that happens the first time you get in your car after you've been in an accident. And I don't care who you are, it's scary. We're just wired that way. Having never been in a serious motorcycle accident, been in a few car accidents, I can only imagine that if we take that fear that exists the first time you get in a car, after you've been in an accident, and you multiply it by 10 and take it to the depths of infinity, you can begin to understand what kind of fear you would feel getting on a motorcycle again after the kind of accident that you had. But if you would, share with us how you spent the 1-year anniversary of that accident.
Well, I will, but I didn't have fear of driving. I had rage.
Towards?
I had rage towards people that were driving carelessly
Interesting.
because I felt like I got hurt by a very careless person.
Okay.
And somebody would cut me off or do something, I just wanted to get out and beat them up.
Yep.
Even though I physically couldn't,
Right.
and I had to seek help for that.
Yep.
Because I didn't know where this rage is coming from.
Interesting.
It was that bad. But even when I was at Parkland, sitting in my wheelchair looking out the window, see a motorcycle go by, I wanted to be on that motorcycle. I still, to this day, I miss it so much. So 1 year on the anniversary, I had a friend loan me his motorcycle so I could drive through that intersection. Had to get through it.
How'd it feel?
Wonderful.
To me, one of the things I always look up to in life, in anybody, is toughness, and I'm convinced it starts with mental toughness. That breeds physical toughness. It starts with mental toughness. That's why I love that story. I can't think of anything more mentally tough than doing something like that. And again, to me, that rolls into your whole character. That rolls into why we wanted to have you here today. That's a story to me that represents the essence of Gary+Hirsch, and it's one of a number of reasons that so many people, certainly me, look up to you. Before we close out, I'm going to ask you to play Think Fast with me before it's done, but you know, if somebody, whether they're a service provider, they're a young business owner, they're here in town, they're trying to make a go of it, what advice do you give that person? What do you recommend
Well,
they
first
do?
of all, I would never tell somebody, I would never say that you should go into business. I wouldn't talk them into it,
Right.
but I wouldn't talk them out of it either.
Yep.
Because that is a decision you really have to make on your own. But you really have to do your homework and understand the consequences.
Yep.
Now, if you're a gambler and you really believe in what you're doing and you're willing to work whatever it takes to do it
Right.
and sacrifice, gamble, because it's a gamble. You could lose everything.
Right.
You know, and you got to be prepared. You know, everyone told me, oh, make sure you figure out how much money you need and double it. No, figure out how much you need and quadruple it.
Right.
You know,
And have a wife who thinks
and yeah.
it's time
yeah.
to sell the house.
Yeah, and that's one thing really important I have to stress is my wife is the hardest working woman I've ever met. Through all these years, especially the first couple, 2-3 years of our business, she never had a day off. She worked her full-time job, came to the store and worked the weekends, never took a vacation,
Yep.
never had a day off,
Yep.
never complained. So that tells you a lot. If I were her, I would have got rid of me a long time ago.
Well, I think we're all glad
You
she
know.
did it. I want to thank you very much for joining us today, for sharing with us. Before we close it out, can I ask you to play Think Fast with me real quickly? And here's the rules.
Okay?
I ask you a question, take no time. First answer that pops in your head. Are you game?
I'm game. Let's
All right,
go.
here we go. I wrote these down just for you.
Oh, okay. List.
All right, 4 or 5 of these. Question number 1, favorite Olympic sport?
Oh, I gotta think fast.
Think fast. First sport that comes to mind.
Are we talking summer or winter?
Your call.
Okay, let's go winter hockey.
That's what I thought. Place you took your wife on your first date.
I'm trying to think the name of it. Mr. Paul's.
In
Warren.
Warren, Michigan.
Yep.
Your make and model of your first car.
1963 Rambler station wagon, 550 cross country.
Love it. This one I'm interested in your answer for. Sushi. Healthy snack or an excuse to be a snob?
Bait.
Favorite holiday?
I love them all. Gotta go with Christmas.
That's where I am. Favorite candy bar?
Ooh, now wait a minute. Now you're getting into a wide range of things here.
You only
But
get one. Desert
only-
Island. You can only bring one.
Snickers.
All right. Finally, last question. Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Michael Jordan.
Thank you very much. Gary+Hirsch,
Dan, thank you.
thank you very much.
So
Appreciate it. And thank you very much for joining us again for our inaugural episode of Lives Among Us. Please check back from time to time, and please tune in next month for our next episode. Thanks very much.